Many people know that I have always exposed the truth at the right time. And because I take a systems approach, if there's anything I have in the game, it's about truth. Indians need to get their head out of their butts. It is a disgrace that people in India are supporting Zionism and blindly supporting it. And to me, this evokes many things. Just because you go get a degree, it's showing the stupidity of people who have degrees. So-called educated people are actually not that smart. And so it again falls upon me, just like I had to do in 2020 when I had to call out the pandemic and the election systems to educate people. And so people need to get their act together. And most of the people who probably understand this are people who actually have brains. The people who will not understand this are people who blindly follow stuff, and their degree is only as probably good as how much they paid to get their degree. It doesn't mean that they're intelligent. We live in a world where intelligence is not measured by repeating things. It's actually measured by using your brain. So we need to step way back. And I've been fighting Zionism probably since I was 17 years old, since 1981, because I studied what is Zionism. First of all, people should take some notes. Zionism is a political ideology. It has nothing to do with Judaism, the religion. Zionism is actually anti-Semitic. It's racist. And in fact, Zionism actually has a history of not only butchering Palestinians, but also butchering and hurting Jews. All right. And this is all very well documented for those people who actually want to do some research versus simply watching something on Star TV or whatever. So let's go look at what Zionism is. A political ideology that was created, manufactured out of thin air by a guy called Theodor Herzl in the 1800s. And everyone can go do their own research on that. In Europe, the Ashkenazi Jews, which are one set of Jews, were in Europe for nearly 300 years. One of the things people need to understand is that in the 1800s, everyone expected there was going to be a major revolution in Germany, a workers' revolution. So again, very well documented. Germany, as most of Europe, the Jews that were there were white Europeans, not from Palestine, not from the land in that region. Palestine existed long before Israel existed, and that's also very well documented. So none of these things, these are all just facts, and no one disputes these facts except people who want to change history. But here's the bottom line, that in Europe, there was discrimination among Jews, but there were various classes of Jews. There were the working class Jews, many of them who were in the trade unions, actually wanting to fight fascism and building bottoms-up workers' movements. There were the bourgeois Jews, and there are various trends. Theodor Herzl had this, he created a political ideology called Zionism, which said, oh, we're being quote unquote persecuted. So this idiot here is conflating Jews and Zionism. He's a bloody idiot. The reality is that Herzl created a political ideology called Zionism because in World War I, this is exactly what happened. They made Germany look like they were evil, and this was done by the mainstream media because they wanted a war. Again, the world is going to enter into a very large war because of idiots like these. So the idiots need to step aside and listen. If these idiots want to go fight, let them go fight them. None of them will do that. They'll talk a big game, but none of them will actually take weapons. Let them go fight. They won't. But here's the deal. Zionism was created. It was a political ideology that was created by Herzl with lots and lots of money from some of the most racist people in the world, like Cecil Rhodes, C-E-C-I-L, who was the guy who created Rhodesia, who had very little regard for black people or brown people for that matter. And he's the one who controlled all the mines in Rhodesia. And Cecil Rhodes was one of the most racist individuals on the planet. Zionism got its funding from Cecil Rhodes, among other people. So Zionism's original goal was to put their homeland in Uganda. Uganda, not Palestine. In fact, Palestine wasn't even on the map there. Okay?
Why was that?
Because imagine the Vikings digging up a 4,000-year-old reference saying that the origin because the Vikings had come to Vermont 4,000 years ago. Imagine the Vikings now saying that we own the homeland called Vermont. So they had dug up a reference saying the homeland was actually Uganda, among many other places, including Texas. So what I'm trying to say, this is a manufactured ideology, all right, by European Ashkenazi Jews. All right, this is very important to understand. In Palestine were Jews living there. 97% of the Palestinians were living there. There were Arab Jews, Arab Muslims. Arab is a race, Judaism is a religion. So remember, this is in the middle of World War II now. After World War II ends, the British say, no, we're not going to give you Uganda. In fact, the first choice was Uganda. Second choice was Argentina. Very important to understand this. So the British said, we're going to give you your homeland in this place called Palestine. Now remember, Britain, if any Indian has studied any history, has a rich history of creating random borders. And these borders are created to have people fight among each other. Britain did this all over Africa. The people of Africa, the great kings of Africa, had their very particular boundaries. Britain went in and drew random nation states and had everyone fighting. And once they got everyone fighting, they stole their resources. All right. Now, the area in Israel is a very strategic area. It's in the Middle East. So again, it was very convenient for Britain once again to create a mess there. So that's what they did. But Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. And you can even go talk, if people go to Torah Judaism, the Twitter feed of very devout Jews, you'll see them saying this. Zionism is racism. Zionism is anti-Semitism. Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. So everyone listening, go study that. 1 + 1 is 2. Go study that. You're not ready to take calculus on or take a position if you don't understand. That's number one. So Zionism is actually a racist model, which believes there are a set of chosen people. Zionism is racism in the service of globalism. That's what Zionism is.
Would you compare it with Brahminism, as you spoke about earlier?
Oh yeah, big time. Now you have to understand, Brahminism has done the same thing that Zionism did. So there is this original set of principles in Hinduism. Brahminism, there was this concept of the guild system, right? If I studied hard, I'd be a Brahmin. If someone else wanted to be a carpenter. But the original model was bottoms up. It was your skills, it was meritocracy. Somewhere along the way, which we can have a long discussion on, which I don't want to do today, that Hinduism was subverted. The notion of karma was made completely different. Karma has nothing to do, oh, in the past life, you were a Brahmin, now you get to be a Brahmin. That's not what it was. It wasn't based on birthright. It was based on your works coming bottoms up. So Brahminism itself, what took place later on was the subversion of Hinduism. And that's what Zionism is. Zionism was a subversion of Judaism. All right. But I just want to teach people the fundamentals. Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. Zionism is a racist political ideology, just like the caste system has nothing to do with Hinduism. And we have to stop it. It needs to be shattered. It's nonsense. All right. So that's a background on this. Many Arab Jews, the Jews of Christ's lineage, converted to Islam because of the subjugation they underwent in Palestine. Very much how many Hindus under Brahminism converted to Islam or Christianity because of the caste system that they felt. So these are some analogies. Now, what we need to understand is that if you look at what has occurred in Israel is the Palestinians have been treated like second-class citizens. Gaza is an open prison. But most important to understand is that Netanyahu, Mossad, which is the intelligence wing of Zionism or Israel, created Hamas. How many of the people are aware of that? Hamas was created. So here's a very important piece here that if you look here, Mossad's entire motto, if you can see it here, can you see it here?
Yeah.
Is by way of deception, thou shalt do war. That is Mossad's motto. And Hamas was a creation of Mossad. Specifically, Brigadier General Yitzhak Segev in 1980s was the Israel military governor in Gaza. He financed Hamas. All right. And you can go, I have a link here to the book that you can go read it. Here is the former Israeli ambassador to Germany. And he openly stated in 2015 that it was the Israeli government that created Hamas to counteract the growing popularity of the Fatah, formerly known as the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. See, there was a secular movement and it was very rational. So this is classic intelligence techniques where you create your opposition that you can control. And you typically make them crazy radical, right? That's the second piece of evidence. And then this is Ron Paul, who gave a testimony clearly saying that Hamas was created as a strategic weapon of Israel. And then here is Mossad chief himself. This is just this year. The Mossad chief himself, Yossi Cohen, visiting Qatar to tell them to continue funding Hamas. Everyone should go do their own research and not be idiots. Hamas was created by Israel. Now, why is the mainstream media not talking about that? Including The Intercept, they did a deep analysis of it. So number one, we know what Zionism is. It has nothing to do with Judaism. It's anti-Semitic. It's racist. It was a British who created this place. They stole it from the Palestinians, and many Arab Jews converted to Islam because of the subjugation of the Ashkenazi Jews. So basically, these white Zionists came, and there were dark-skinned Jews there. And still to this day, the non-Ashkenazi Jews are treated as badly as the Palestinians. All right. So Mossad created Hamas. Everyone write that down. It's fully documented. Israel created Hamas, financed them. All right. So now it all fits in. Let me give you a third piece of it. So I've told you where Hamas comes from. The third piece of evidence is a devil, the satanic individual called Netanyahu. Netanyahu's pure devil. You can find ample videos on the internet, him talking about how stupid Americans are, how he can easily manipulate them. And Netanyahu is a war criminal. He has a history of butchering Palestinians. Netanyahu, for the last 2 years, he's been under massive indictments in Israel. In fact, 2 weeks before this incident took place, there were nearly 100,000 people who were protesting against him, protesting against Netanyahu. Why? Because Netanyahu was on corruption charges. He was convicted. He was on fraud charges. There was a civil war in Israel. 70% of the Israelis hate Netanyahu. Even among the Israeli Jews, there's multiple parties. So there's been a huge uprising against Netanyahu by Israeli Jews, by Israelis in Israel. Again, this is a piece of fact. Most of these Indians who are blindly supporting Israel should get studied.
But
And I
why
was
would they create a monster who would come and destroy them and then they go and attack them? How does it work?
Well, you're making the assumption as though Israelis created Netanyahu. Netanyahu is supported by much larger forces than the people of Israel or the people of Palestine. He's funded by much, much larger forces. And we'll get to that. But the point is, Netanyahu would not exist were it for the Israeli people being able to vote him out. He was engineered in, and everyone should just go do research 1 year ago, 6 months ago. There's huge protests of Israelis against Netanyahu. So Netanyahu, what he did was, being prime minister, he went and changed the judiciary. He was going to fire the attorney general who was going to indict him. That's why there were protests. He was going to be thrown in jail, Mina. Netanyahu was on his way to be convicted again. So given those three things, suddenly Hamas, flying on these little planes, breaks into Israel. If you talk to anyone, I've been to Israel for 6 weeks. Israel's like a police state. It prides itself on this amazing military, amazing surveillance. It got the Iron Dome. So anyone who's stupid enough, given what I've just shared, to think that Netanyahu and Israel were not behind this needs to have their head checked. And if you do not understand it after the facts I've given to you, then you're just a bloody idiot.
Israelis are innocent. It's these people
The
who
Israeli people, the people. There's a difference between the people.
Yeah.
So there are many, many Jews who are anti-Zionist. It's no different than saying Hindus are anti-caste system. There are many Hindus who don't believe in the caste system. They're not into Brahmanism. There are Brahmins who are not into Brahmanism. So there are many Jews who are against Zionism. All right. So let me play this for you.
Nothing. They do not care for Jewish people. They only care for one thing: Zionism. They can kill everyone. They do not mind killing many Jewish people. They can kill. But Zionism has to win. Zionism is the biggest enemy of the Jewish people. And this is Amalek, and they fight against Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And this is what. That's why they're bringing bloodshed to the Jewish people. They do not care for Jewish people. They only care for one thing: Zionism.
So people can look at my Twitter feed. Any real Jew knows the concept of Judaism has nothing to do with setting up a state. All right. So Zionism is not Judaism. All right. And there's another video that I'll play also of another Jewish, these are your Jewish priests, okay? Like our Indian gurus, okay? Or Indian religious leaders, okay? Who actually understand what this is. This is another rabbi. Let me bring this up. This is another rabbi sharing his views, not his views, the actual teachings of Judaism, exposing how nonsensical this is. And again, so here's this, let me play for you here.
We have a message for this Nakba Day, for this 75 years of occupation. We want the world to know that what is being perpetrated against the Palestinian people, the oppression, the subjugation, the terrible cruelty, is not in the name of our religion. It is not in the name of the Star of David. It is not in the name of the Jewish people around the world who are true to the Jewish religion. Because we are Jewish and because we are true to our religion, we are in total opposition to the existence of the Zionist state of Israel. I call it Zionist state of Israel because it is Zionist. It is not Jewish. Judaism in the Torah forbids Jews to have our own sovereignty, our own entity since the destruction of the temples, and Jews, true to the Torah, never aspire or try to have our own state. We also are forbidden to kill or to steal. The whole concept of taking this land away from the Palestinian people, it is totally antithetical and is contradictory to my religion, Judaism. Jews have always, from day one, stood up against this Zionist entity. We as Jews continue. Because we are true to the Torah, we stand and demonstrate and we cry and suffer and feel the suffering of the Palestinian people. We want the world to know we are in solidarity. We are together with the Palestinian people in their suffering, and we hope and pray to God constantly for the total end of the occupation. We want the world to know that the Zionist movement is not a Jewish movement. It was a political, material movement created by heretics, and they simply try to incorporate our religion in order to intimidate and silence people and call them anti-Semitic if they stand in opposition. But this is patently false. Anti-Semitic is supporting the state of Israel. It is the cause of exacerbating anti-Semitism by having this occupation. It is the cause of bloodshed of the Palestinians and Jews alike. It is the cause of the oppression of not only the Muslims and the Christians in Palestine, but of the Jews. Hundreds of thousands of Jews stand in Palestine, have lived there prior to the state. They have lived and they're continuing to live till today and demonstrate daily and get brutally beaten and arrested. This is the sad story of this terrible Nakba. It is a tragedy, a calamity, and God with his compassion, we hope, will you'll see the suffering. And even today, the last few days, how you see daily the death and suffering of the Palestinians and the attack. It's all Zionism, not Judaism. God, with his compassion, should bring a speedy removal of the Zionist state of Israel so we can once again live together in harmony. Jews and Arabs, as we've had for all these hundreds and hundreds of years, and Jews could show their gratitude to the Arab and Muslim countries for their embracing Jews and giving them a home. Inshallah, soon in our days. Amen.
You see what I'm saying? So these are the kinds of people. Our campaign and our movement, Truth, Freedom, Health, has been exposing these people. So it's becoming, so we've created a massive disruptive force because we have very sincere people, like I've articulated here, who are starting to use their brains.
Yeah.
So we need to be far more intelligent. We need to use our brains, and we need to look at the actual facts. Hamas was created by Israel. How the hell does these people on little bicycle planes break the Iron Dome when there's satellites now everywhere that can watch? You can watch a little
Every
flea.
move.
Yeah, the whole thing is nonsense. Netanyahu is pure devil. If there's a Scython, it's Netanyahu. So if you want to really look at some spiritual things, the whole goal of Hinduism and the goal of Shaivite Hinduism is Shiva has this trushlan, he pierces darkness, which is ignorance. And maybe that's what my job is here. But that's what we're doing here. The goal of Hinduism is to remove your rose-colored glasses and to overcome Maya, an illusion, and to see things as they are. We live in the age of Kali
Very
Yuga.
interesting indeed, Dr. Shiva, because this is one side that we did not, many of us did really look into. And it's good that you explain the side because many of our viewers now will think about it in different ways. It's what you say has a lot of sense to it. And yes, these are also things that we've been following. So there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. And we're ending our session. So thank you so much for this wonderful talk with you. I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Mina. People should go to truthfreedomhealth.com and Shiva numeral 4 president.com if they want to volunteer. Thank you, Mina.
Thank you so much and good night.
Be well. Good night.